Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the New Adjuster Podcast, Season 3, Episode 4. We've got a fantastic episode ahead for you today with a very special guest. We can't wait to introduce her shortly. If you're new to this podcast, it's really about introducing new adjusters to the realm of adjusting, helping them navigate their careers, and better preparing them for the road ahead in the adjusting world. If you missed our last episode, I thought it was a really good one. I was actually the guest. I thought it went well. I think today's might be a little bit better, but if you missed last week's episode or any previous episodes from this season or previous seasons, go back, give them a watch or a listen wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you get notified of future content, and even leave a comment below. Maybe you get featured on a future episode. We're your hosts as always. My name is Murphy Buggs. I'm in the property training department here at CNC, and with me as always is
Kelsey Arrington, property claims manager.
And quick tease, she's the guest today. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay, everyone, today's episode is titled My Life as a Claims Manager at an Independent Adjusting Firm. I told you we had a very special guest. Let's go ahead and introduce her now.
Hi, guys. Kelsey, as always. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We're kind of flipping the roles, like we did last week. Before we get into the role of a claims manager and kind of what you do on a daily basis now, let's do much like we did last week and start at the beginning. So, what was the first time you heard about CNC? How did you get involved in adjusting? Give us the full detailed history.
We're going to take it way back.
Okay.
All right. 2017, I was unemployed and went into a temp agency, and they said, hey, we've got a great job for you. They looked at my resume and said, here we go. But it's 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And I was like, oh, crap. I think I was in my 20s. I was like 23. And I was like, heck, I'll do it. That's a lot. That's a lot of hours. That sounds like a lot of money,
sure.
Overtime, whatever. So I came in the door with a temp agency, working in the flood department as a processor, which means you're getting claims to enter from the various flood carriers. You're seriously just entering them into the system. You're processing them whenever they get back from the field, whenever they get past QC, you're entering in all of that information and it gets sent to the carrier. Yeah. It was one of those things where you get so used to doing it that it's just like, I could have done it with my eyes closed.
Right.
Like typing, tabbing through, getting everything done. Yeah. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I like the repetitious things, I guess you could say. Started in the flood department. I eventually did move over to flood QC after looking at files after all that time. I think it was a couple months. This was during Harvey and Irma. Moved over to flood QC, and that lasted about a week, and I was like, I hate this. I hated everything about it. Flood was not for me, and I will say that to this day.
Sorry, Craig.
Sorry, Craig. Maybe one day in the future, but no, it's a lot. It's a lot. So about that time, my old manager at the time, she came to me and she was like, Kelsey, do you want to come work in property? And I was like, yeah, anything else.
Sure.
Like anything but flood. So I went and worked in the property department. They got my emergency license for Florida because I was working Irma. So Harvey was more so on the flood side of things. Yep. Irma was more property. So right. I went.
Yeah, and Harvey was Texas too. Yeah.
Yes, it was Texas. So it was totally different world in property. So working for a carrier as a desk adjuster, got my emergency license. The girls in RDL were so amazing. They were like getting everybody their licenses, and it was really fun. Started out as a desk adjuster over there. Eventually went and got my permanent license, my real license, and about that time, we're writing letters, we're processing claims, we're doing all of it. I learned really quickly. Some good folks in here trained me up, and I got really good at the letters. Yeah. Writing letters, reviewing the letters, the policy language. It was just my thing. People would come to me. I'd been doing it for like a month, and people were coming to me, Kelsey, how should I write this letter? So about that time, we had what was called trainers. They were on the floor. They'd review your letters. They'd check your payments, the numbers, whatever. they came to me and were like, "Hey, Kelsey, can you help us review letters?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" About that time, our management came over and they were like, "All right, Kelsey, we're just going to make you a trainer." And I had been doing this for maybe a month and a half. And I was like, "Oh, crap. Okay."
Yeah. So you picked it up quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, if there's one thing, I don't really like to brag and say this, but policy language is just one thing that I'm really good at deciphering and figuring out and applying it in certain situations.
Yeah.
So this was perfect for me. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I was a trainer for several months on the floor, helping everybody else. And I thought, I could continue doing this. But as my claims wrap up, whatever, they're like, "All right, Kelsey, we're going to make you a supervisor." And I was like, "Oh, God, this is happening quick. I haven't even been doing this for a year." But turns out, again, this is kind of in the same realm of things. We brought on more property carriers for CNC. I started a couple of those from the ground up with CNC. I actually worked the desk again as those carriers came in. They were, a small amount of claims in the beginning. Loved it, figured it out, and they're like, "Okay, this is great, but we need you to bring more desk adjusters in." So I'm like, "Okay, we can do this." We build this whole team. I think we ended up having like 25 adjusters on this account. I supervised all the adjusters, checked their letters, reviewed their payments, all this stuff, given authority. And then not too long after that, I got pregnant with my first child. Went out on maternity leave. I think I was gone for 6 weeks, came back, and they were like, "Okay, great. Now we're going to make you a manager. So you're going to manage
one more step
of it." I was like, "Oh, crap. Like, what have I gotten myself into?" But at the same time, it's one of those things where I've worked several carriers now at this point, supplements, regular claims, new claims, hurricane claims. Then we get into all other perils,
right?
Water damage claims, all of that.
Which is more your daily claims.
It's your daily claims. I just was absorbing. I was reading all into the night. Even when I was on maternity leave, I was learning about claims. I was watching videos, figuring out how these water claims differ from hurricane or cat claims.
Yeah.
Come back to that, and it's a whole new world, and I love it.
Yeah.
I will just say that. The other stuff is what gets you. Cat claims are just that. They're pretty much all the same. You got a tree on a roof. You've got
a fence roof gone, a fence down,
all of that. But this is new. You've got lightning claims. You've got theft claims. You've got
vandalism, fire,
you've got fire, water backups. You're learning all of these, and also not only that, but we're learning different states at this point.
Right.
So all of my adjusting career in the beginning was at the very beginning, Texas, but that wasn't for long.
But then really kind of mainly Florida, right?
Florida after that. So it was all Florida. And then all of a sudden it's like you got Texas, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, which New York is a whole different ballgame.
Right.
So you've got all these new states, and I'm learning all these endorsements and different things that apply to different areas. And again, I love it. The new things that you just learn and figure out. So that happened. They're like, "All right, Kelsey, we've got more carriers coming," and I'm like, "All right, I can do this." Yeah. We're getting all this stuff coming in, and it's so much fun. So that's kind of how I came to be manager of our property department.
There you go.
It started at the bottom, and now we're here.
Yeah. Okay, Drake. That's right. So, because I can remember when you first moved over to property, because at the time I was a property supervisor or whatever. And when you moved over, I can remember you walking in the door, and I was like, "I know her," because we knew each other in high school. I was like, "I know her. What's she do?" And then I can remember you sat over at a desk in the corner, and then it was like, it felt like a week later, you were the one walking around, looking over people's really shoulders and reviewing letters and, getting them from point A to point B so they can close these claims. And then, you and I have kind of been here through that same timeline and kind of worked along the way. So when you first came in the flood department and you're doing processing, the repetitive, it's not monotonous, because I did processing a little bit too. I liked it was kind of like busy work.
It was. You could listen to a podcast or your music.
And just kind of dial in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you did that was a lot of like data entry, processing, numbers, forms, this and that. But when you move over to more of a desk adjusting role, is there any skills that you felt like you didn't need to learn right off the bat. Like they just kind of came with you and you already had them. Was it like?
Yeah. And I say starting I would say processing was kind of similar to an admin. You worked in the call center, you answered incoming calls from insureds. I would recommend, and I'll stand on this, that you come into the claims world as an admin.
Yeah.
As, call center, dispatch, FNOL, taking that first notice of loss, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because those things that I learned in that beginning part of it was everything. Because you're learning what even is a claim.
Right.
You're learning flood lines, or you're learning, property damage, what that entails. Because I did come from somewhat of a construction background, so I don't want to say I came into this blind. Like, I didn't know much about insurance, but my dad was a sheetrock finisher by trade. My uncle owned a sheetrock business. Like, I knew kind of some of the basics of what goes into building and construction. I've also seen my parents get several new roofs throughout my life, and I was very fascinated by that for some reason. But other than that, I feel like what came along with that is what I didn't need to learn would have been, reading something and applying it somewhere else.
Right.
I feel like that's something, I don't want to say came naturally to me, but it's something that I learned maybe in school, in high school. And you read something, it's all in black and white, and you apply it here. Okay, I'm reading this policy, and I see that I'm trying to think of an example, that water that enters not through a storm-created opening is not covered. So I see over here in this claim, and they're saying that the water entered their home flood, or it entered through a crack in the wall.
Right,
and I'm like, okay, a storm did not create that opening.
Right, it's
ding,
been
ding,
there
ding.
long
It's common
term.
sense. Yeah. So those kind of things just came easily, more easily. I feel like adjusting is a lot of common sense. And if you break it down to that, it really makes it a lot more simple for especially new people to understand. It's not as difficult as a lot of people try to make it out to be.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, too. You got to be detail-oriented, but you got to be able to analyze certain things and kind of break it up into sections, because somebody can get a policy. I mean, how long is a policy and on average?
70 pages.
Right. If you look at a 70-page document and you think, I have to learn this, you're gonna worry yourself to death.
Control F is your best friend.
Exactly. But if you break it out into, coverage A, coverage B, C, D, exclusions, all these different types of things, deductibles, endorsements, then it becomes a little easier to digest. But again, you got to be able to analyze it, like you said, and apply it in certain situations. So you said that you kind of had that. Really, it came naturally to you. I think you're very detail oriented.
Yes, very much so.
I know
I
that
write
from
everything
working with
down.
you.
Like I am
I can
one of
attest
those.
to that. I've seen
I'm one
those
of those
notebooks.
people. I have like stacks of notebooks on my desk because that's how I remember things. And people learn and comprehend information or retain information differently. My way of doing that is writing it down. I can listen to a 2-hour-long class, and if I write it down, it's going to be stuck in my brain.
It's stuck there.
So not only that, but taking notes, keeping spreadsheets of what I need, and I hate spreadsheets. I will just admit that, but I have thousands saved. But being detail-oriented is huge. You've got to be organized. You have to know, this applies here, but also I keep binders of information. I'll print out a policy and read it. Not saying that I'm reading it beginning to end, because again, Control F is your best friend, guys.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there are other things within a policy that you don't think about. Like I mentioned just a second ago, storm created opening language. It's not going to say storm created opening.
Right, yeah.
There are keywords, not code words, but like keywords that you need to keep in mind and look for. And I remember having a page of just, this is how I'm going to search this in the policy, because I remember reading it, but I don't remember exactly what it said. So with that being said, in most homeowners policies, I search for sand, dust, something of that nature, and that's what pops up in the policy.
Right.
Is sand, dust, hail that enters through. Anyway, I don't know exactly off the top of my head now, but just finding code words, having those written down, having a sticky note to say, this is how I find this. And the more you do it, the more times you look at a policy. And I think that's what helped me when becoming a trainer, because I was looking at 50 to 100 desk adjusters letters every day.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it over and over and over again.
Right.
We created templates.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot when you have a template for wear and tear. Or if you have a template for, storm credit opening or no coverage B or whatever the case is. You have templates, you get yourself organized. That's something huge to me. And I think I'll speak to that at another point in time here. But staying organized on what you're doing is huge, and just keeping track of everything, because you're going to have a lot of claims. During Irma, I wish I would have kept track of all the claims that I paid.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah. So when you're doing that type of trainer letter review role, you're going desk to desk and checking people's letters and payments and things like that. How long did it take you to really get to where you felt comfortable and you weren't second guessing yourself? Because even as a trainer, look, I'm going to be honest, sometimes you teach something and you're like, I'm pretty sure this is the way it's going to come off best, or I'm pretty sure this is the way it should be interpreted. But how long did it take you to get to the point where you're like, oh, yeah, I know this is right, or I know this needs to be changed here?
I would say it took a good 6 months to know in my heart that things were right.
Right.
But I feel also at the same time, it's not always about being 100% right. It's about being confident. And it took me about 6 months to become confident in what I knew. That was the biggest thing for me. I was so nervous in the beginning because I was like, I've never even knew anything about insurance, and I've been put in this position. But I thought at the same time, I didn't have all these people behind me telling me I could do it, and me not really being able to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So it took, I would say, a good solid 6 months of fully immersing myself in it.
Right.
And that's 7. I think we worked Irma for 8 months to a year, maybe more.
Yeah, long time.
It took that long to really figure things out, but I feel like that really set me up. Coming in on a giant cat like that sets you up for success, because you're doing it all these long hours, 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
You're surrounded by it. You're talking about it. You have 50 to 100 people on your row in the same room together, which, again, I feel like those types of deployments, not knocking work from home, but those types, when you're in the room with people, you're hearing other people talk about it, you're immersed in it. And that's what helped me. I feel like that's what helped me learn so quickly, because while I know this person that sits next to me may struggle a little bit with letters, but that lady that sits across from me, she knows her stuff, and she's been doing this. She's a well-seasoned adjuster. I'm going to just sit here and listen to her while she's on this phone call and how she explains it to people. And I feel like that in and of itself is what helped me grow and succeed, is starting a big deployment with lots of smart people around me. And here we are.
To your point, too, when we were working Irma, I remember, I think at one point there was 94 or 95 people sitting in a room.
Yeah.
Non-cubicles either, sitting at tables like this, all
lined
in
up.
rows. And I remember, not only did you have good camaraderie because you were working with those people, but you really got to learn at an accelerated rate. Because like you said, you could listen to the person beside you. We're in a cat, so all the claims are basically the same. They're all hurricane claims. It's wind damage, right? So everybody kind of gets used to what they're dealing with, and if there's a one-off that somebody else has, we can all go gather around, or they can have a group of 5 people listen to a phone call. And I feel like that really helped, too. And I know with me, and probably the same as you, when you start out in a cat, it really helps you get your feet under you and understand what you're doing, because it is somewhat repetitive. It's the same type of loss over and over again. Now, granted, we're all in the office there, but let's fast forward a little bit. When you were supervisor, you might have been manager at this time, in 2020, when COVID happened and everybody goes remote. What's that like for a supervisor and a manager when, let's be honest, we hadn't done that before?
No.
I mean, sure, maybe if other people in other industries have, but we at this building had never done that before, where it's like, hey, we're all going home.
And this was not during a
manage.
cat.
Right.
So this was just daily work that we're getting with several different carriers. That was dang hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say it this way, but I feel like it was harder for me because my daughter's daycare closed at the same time. I had a 1-year-old learning to walk at home with me while I'm navigating, figuring out how to work from home. I will never
And
recommend
how to manage from home, too.
how to manage people from home. So it started out really difficult because we're trying to figure out our groove. We're saying, do we want to do daily meetings with everybody?
Right.
And that's what
Like
it started
stand-up
as.
meetings,
Stand-up meetings. We started daily for an hour. We'd talk every day. I thought, this is so unproductive. They could be processing claims, writing letters. So we figured out our IT department and our, what's it called? Not IT, our development team. They worked out things within our claims management system that at first we were just emailing letters back and forth. Like our team would email me a coverage letter and say, hey, can you review this? And I'd make my changes, update it, send it back to them and say, save this as a PDF, then upload it here, and then do this, and then do that. And I thought, God, there's got to be
It's got to be a more efficient way,
So our dev team created something within our ClaimSource, our claims management system, where they upload a coverage determination letter. It automatically goes into a bucket.
Right.
So I can click one link that I go to every single day in the morning, 20 times a day. All of those letters are there. All of those claims are there. So same thing with like payments and such. They were all there. They helped us make it more accessible and easy to do working at home because it was not easy.
Right.
We're still having meetings, of course. We're on the phone all day long. We're having Teams calls, video chats. It was definitely a learning curve. And I can remember sitting there thinking, how the heck are we going to continue to do this? And I'm watching the news saying, can we please go back? I feel like I'm still the only person that wants to be in the office.
Right.
And I know y'all hear me say this all the time, but working in the office is it for me.
Yeah.
Coming here, getting ready in the morning, coming to work, being around my people, because that's what CNC is. They're my people. This is my second home. I still learn so much just from listening to people talk around me. Now Rusty in the training department sits over by me and I hear him on the phone with field adjusters. I've not worked in the field, but I know a lot by just sitting and listening to that guy, and I love it. So I remember watching the news saying, when can we get back to work? And then eventually we did. Yeah. It was hybrid. Yeah. So we were like, hey, come back to the office for 2 days a week or come back to the office for 3 days a week. And I was like, okay, I can do this. You know, Monday and Friday at home or whatever days it was. I don't remember. It's changed so many times. I was like, I like that. You know, I still have the option to work from home, but I didn't really see the point.
Right.
Like, I'm here in Mobile, and we do have a lot of people that aren't local. So that I understand. You're not going to come in the office if you're not local. And some of my best folks do not live in the Mobile area. Some of them I never even met. I'm still friends with some people that worked with me years and years ago through these deployments. I'm friends with them on Facebook. I text them all the time, and I've never met them in real life. And that's crazy to me that it's like, I meet all these people throughout this industry. I have field adjusters that text me, checking on
Couldn't
me.
pick them out of a lineup.
Could not pick them out of a lineup. I've never seen them except on a Teams meeting, but we talk all the time. Like it's awesome. It's a very cool environment to be in. I have to say I enjoy it.
Yeah. So before we take a break here in the middle, I know you talked about as a claims manager the difficulties of managing people remotely. Yeah. Put yourself in the shoes of a desk adjuster, which you were at one point. What's the difficulties there or the challenges of working remote as opposed to being in the office? And we may have already touched on a couple of them.
I think one of the biggest challenges working remote is that you can't turn around and ask your friend next to you, hey, what would you do in this situation? Right. That's huge because I know in the office here, when we're here, I can roundtable I have team leads that work with me. I have supervisors that work with me. And I'm like, hey, what would y'all do in this situation? I'm reading the policy. It says this. This is how I would apply it. And somebody else could have a very valid opposite thought than me. And I'm like, oh, crap, I didn't think of it like that. I like that. Yeah. Let's go with that. Yeah. And not only that, but just working together to roundtable things. Granted, I'm not saying you can't call up somebody. And I recommend everyone at home that you are working remotely, get to know your team. Yeah,
have that buddy system.
Have the buddy system. Message them and say, hey, I'm new. You know I'm new. What's going on? My name is Kelsey. You know, can I run some things by you if I have some questions? I promise that you're not going to get on their nerves.
Yeah.
Just
'Cause
call
they were
me
in that person's
if
shoes
that's
too.
needed.
Yeah.
But also, like, I feel like that's I don't want to say a misconception, but just not being able to reach out to your manager is tough. You have team leads and managers, supervisors, leadership there for a reason to help you.
Yeah.
Reach out to them.
Yeah.
That's literally why we're here.
Yeah.
I think that it's difficult working from home, not being able to separate the life and the home. I mean, it's your home life balance and work.
Yeah.
Because I know personally when I work from home, I will get up, start working at 6:30, 7 a.m. And by the time I look at the clock, I'm like, oh, it's 3 o'clock and I haven't had lunch. Eat something really quick, get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at the clock again, or I look outside and it's dark. And I'm like, what the heck? And just can't separate it because you're on a roll. You're doing this. You're closing so many claims. You're making so much money if you're closing these claims and you're working on a per claim basis.
Sure.
But even as a supervisor or anyone in leadership, you do that and it's hard to like shut your computer and shut down.
It's hard to get away from it.
Get away from it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the perks of coming to the office is you have a schedule. This building's going to close at a certain time regardless.
Take lunch. Take your 2 breaks.
Take your
Walk to DG.
We do walk to Dollar General every day,
Yeah.
just to get out of here for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is very beneficial
Yeah.
to me, and I'm sure others.
Yeah.
And maybe people do it better than me. The work from home stuff. I'm sure that there are people out there who have, a dedicated space to work. Everyone should. I don't. I work all over my house. But that's why I come to the office. Anyway, they may have better plans. They may have, better boundaries to shut it off.
Yeah, because everybody's a little different.
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
But then again, you're at the office. CNC supplies you with everything that you need. You've got, your 2 or 3 screens, your monitors, everything's there. When you're at home, you're going to have to get that stuff for yourself. You're going to have to make sure that that's there for you. And it's not always as easily accessible. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
My 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I like that. All right, everybody, let's do our misconception of the week. This week's segment is brought to you by Blue Leopard Agency. Marketing shouldn't feel like a guessing game. If you're overwhelmed and looking for a way out of the chaos, Blue Leopard Agency has your back. Escape the marketing jungle, reach your ideal customers, and fuel your business growth with a custom strategy. Get started today at blueleopardagency.com. Okay, Kelsey, this week's misconception. Or what is one of the biggest misconceptions that new adjusters have about working with a claims manager?
I'm sure there's many. I don't hear them too often, but I do sometimes hear that they're scared to reach out to the claims manager, that they are nervous about it or something along those lines. And to that, I will always be the first person to say, do not ever be afraid, nervous, worried about reaching out to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a hierarchy in things that go on. If you've got a direct claim-related question, you've got a team lead there, ask them. But I will say also at the same time, I'm there. I'm willing to be in the trenches with you guys. I know about claims, obviously, but also if a carrier comes to me, which I'm usually the direct person talking to,
like the point of contact.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, what's going on with this claim? Look at it with me. And I pull it up and I'm like, oh, crap. I don't know anything about it. I don't actually work the claims. Heck no.
Yeah, you can't say that.
That would fly.
Yeah.
Like, no.
You have to have an understanding of what's going on.
You have to know what's going on. So I'm aware of what's going on in your claims. And believe it or not, I sometimes go in them and just look and see how people are doing, auditing files. But when a carrier calls and they're like, hey, Kelsey, can you look at this one with me? I'm like, yep, here's what I think. This is the feedback. This is the direction that I likely gave to a desk adjuster. Yeah. And they're like, okay, yeah, we like that. I'm going to know what you're asking me. It's not like you're coming to me and a manager that sits up in their ivory tower and just dishes out direction or says, hey, y'all do this or you do that and have no idea what's actually going on.
Yeah.
That couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, you got to be plugged in.
I mean, you have to be plugged in. And again, I don't want to sound, I don't know what's the word I'm even looking for, but I am plugged in, and I know what's going on with all of my teams, what's going on in the claims, and I hope that no one ever feels that they cannot come to me with a question about a claim, about a situation with an insured. I mean, I had a field adjuster call me today, and they're like, hey, this happened to me on this roof of this house. And I'm like, oh, crap. Like, we can't have that, Yeah. So I won't get into the details of that, but I'm sure you can read between the lines. Yeah. There are all of these misconceptions that you can't go to a claims manager, a director, VP, but that's never been the case for me here at CNC. I can go right now to our CEO or our president and say, let me ask you about this claim. How would you do this? And their open door policy, we're there to help. Everyone here is very open and willing to help anybody who asks.
Yeah, and real quick, too, I think a misconception is they're afraid, desk adjusters are afraid that if they call you and they ask you a question, then you're going to think, well, they don't know what they're doing. You would rather them ask the question because that means they're engaged, they're involved. If you never hear from them, then you almost start to worry. And you're like,
don't hear from
A, are they working? B, are they just doing some stuff? And exactly. Is it just passing through? Yeah. So, I think all that's a huge misconception.
All that what you said is very true, because I would rather you call me and run something by me than figuring it out and it be wrong, and then I'm having to answer to the carrier to figure out what's going on. If you truly don't know something, call and ask the question. And I say that to everybody. If you have a question, we actually make group chats within departments. So AOP department, non-weather water, CAT, we have group chats because I want everyone to reach out, ask for help.
And you want them to feel comfortable
from your peers and from myself as well. I'm in these chats, and I feel like sometimes people don't want to ask questions if they know, if I join in on a Teams meeting or something, my teams now know that that's not me, that I will answer the question. I'll be open and honest, and to never be nervous about asking a manager a question, because it's literally what you're here for. If you can't go to your manager and ask a question about a claim, you're in trouble. Yeah. That's a problem.
Might not be a good deal. No, you're right. All right, good segment.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into part 2 here. Who would you say, I know you deal with desk adjusters all day, every day, because claims manager, that's mostly what you deal with. But who else is kind of in your, purview or in your spider web of people that you talk to? Do you talk to field adjusters and like accounting? Obviously, you probably deal with HR as we're bringing on people, carriers. Talk to us about the other people that you deal with as a claims manager.
Yeah, so I work with literally everyone anywhere in this building. Right. So that goes from HR, our RDL department. That means making sure people are up to date on their licenses. Work with them on that. Work with them to find field adjusters so they find adjusters for us. So accounting, if somebody's like, hey, I was looking to get an update on my payment for this claim, I'm reaching out to accounting and saying, hey, can you look into this for this adjuster, whether that's desk or field.
Or how a claim gets billed.
Gets billed. I work with our admins on invoicing, dispatching claims, who to give claims to in different areas. Yeah. I have a working relationship with our field managers, work hand in hand. QC that reviews all the files. I give them any updates on, hey, we got this new information from the carrier. I sit in on literally every training with every carrier to figure out what's going on, what's new, what they're directing us to do with their claims. And I pass that information along. I am also the type of manager that I want to include people in my department. So admins, dispatch, team leads, supervisors. If we're meeting with someone and we're getting direction, I want everybody there so we all hear the same message.
Yeah, so like whoever needs to know gets to know.
Needs to know, knows. And granted, desk adjusters might not always be a part of that training, but everybody that needs to be does. And then we'll set up our own if need be. But like I said, working with the carriers directly, I'm point of contact with all of the carriers that I work with. I get information and disseminate that immediately. Yeah. Note taking again. I have just pages and pages and pages that I then disperse out. If something comes up randomly, I'm like, hey, field manager or QC, can you get this information, have a meeting with the field adjuster? So I work with the field adjusters a lot as well. So we have weekly field adjuster meetings, and I'm a very big part of that, giving information out. I have them, like I said, call me and they're like, hey, what's up? Hadn't heard from you in a little while, just checking in on you. So it's not just the desk adjusters. The desk side of things, I feel in my role specifically, and this might not be the same for every firm, every, carrier, but my role specifically is mostly desk. The field, we have our own field managers here at CNC. Again, I'm not separate from that, though.
Right, yeah.
So I still deal with them. Accounting, HR, bringing on new adjusters. I work with that. We'll interview people. We will put out a blast to say, hey, we're looking for these positions. Can we fill those? There's a lot of people. I work directly with our firm leadership. So our president, CEO, I go to them and I'm like, hey, this is what I need. And they're like, okay, we will make that happen. We'll make it work. So it's kind of like an all around, I'm in contact with everyone.
Yeah, you got to be a good communicator in that
training
because
department.
you deal with so many people.
Yeah, so I work with training a lot as well, building things, getting information. Murphy's got a new title now. He does some of our data and analytics, and we work really closely with that, figuring out, how many claims were closed this week,
Versus
these numbers,
like how many we're getting.
How many we're getting, So providing information to not only my desk adjusters, but to a bunch of different departments because they need it. They're like, hey, Kelsey, we have 5 field adjusters in this area. What do we need over here? And we're constantly reaching out and saying, all right, I need our RDL department to find 2 more field adjusters in Jacksonville or 5 more in Miami or whatever the case is. So it's kind of across the board. It's a lot, but it's nice to have that camaraderie with everybody in the building.
So when we talk about new adjusters, obviously what the podcast is for, when you bring in new adjusters, let's just say they're desk adjusters, you bring in the new ones, what are some qualities that you can easily recognize right out of the gate that if they got them, they'll be fine? And what are some ones that maybe you don't see as often that you think, I wish more people came in knowing that or having that quality kind of in their back pocket that would make them more successful?
Asking me a trick question now because there are a lot of qualities that maybe I see that others don't. And again, this maybe everybody sees this, but being organized, coming in on day one and saying, hey, I've got this, and this done. What's next?
Right.
Having people that, and I don't want to say that learn or retain information like I do, but I can pinpoint that. I'm like, okay, they're taking notes. They're paying attention. Even if it's in a Teams virtual meeting,
right,
I can tell when someone is paying attention to what we're talking about, either taking notes, typing on their computer, figuring things out, and then other people who got their phone and are playing on it. Yeah. So
you see this on the screen.
You see that, or you see them like this, like head down, and it's like, come on.
Yeah.
But not only that, but just coming in with a positive attitude. I feel like wanting to be there shows. Wanting to do this job, it shows. And coming forward and saying, okay, like we mentioned a second ago, asking the questions, that's huge. Because not everybody, some people are shy.
Yeah, as long as they're not repetitive questions, it's fine.
No, not even if they're repetitive. Even if somebody asked me yesterday, they're like, all right, Kelsey, I know that we talked about this, but you have to think of repetitive in a claims environment.
Right,
is not always
That's true.
a repetitive question.
That's true.
Because you can say, Kelsey, I had this claim yesterday, and this was the situation, and this is how we handled it. But on this claim, this weird thing is going on. You're like, oh, so that is a little different.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of the same question, but I always...
Maybe a different state, maybe a different carrier.
True. Or, so anyway, but with that being said, they come to you and they're like, hey, my biggest quality that I look for in somebody, and this is like hands down number one, is when they come to me and they're like, Kelsey, this is what I think I should do in this claim. Do you agree?
They come with a solution or a proposed solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm
it doesn't have to be right, but it lets you know that they
Exactly.
put the initiative in to be like, I think this is what I need to do. And if it's dead wrong, who cares?
Who cares? You actually came to me and you're like, hey, this is what I think I should do. If it's wrong, I don't care if it's wrong. I can steer you and teach you, show you the way within, the bounds of the policy or whatever the case is. But coming to me with something that they're like, I think this is what I need to do in this situation. Because again, you may come to me as a brand new, fresh desk adjuster and say, hey, Kelsey, I think I should apply this and do it like this. And I would say, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
And y'all could be proving me and showing me something. Like I said, this industry, you learn something new every single day. Mm-hmm. And coming into something, especially a new adjuster with fresh eyes and a fresh take on it, I feel like that's super beneficial and helpful for claims world these days. I know we talked about this in your podcast last week, but coming in with no experience is sometimes a good thing.
Yeah, because then you can kind of be molded from the get-go.
You're molded, and you're not bringing in bad habits. Not saying that other adjusters are bringing in all the bad habits, because I feel like having a bunch of different types of people, brand new people, green people, people who've been doing this for a year or two, is the perfect environment because you can all help each other out. Yeah. And if you're not willing to pitch in and help thy neighbor, I don't know if if you're like, no, I'm about me and only me, and I'm not going to help anybody else, and I'm not going to answer any questions. That's not how you make it in this world.
Well, like I said, we talked about it last week. Everybody gets to eat when we do good.
Exactly.
If one desk adjuster's doing good and then all the other ones are bad, the carrier's going to say, well, we can't use you.
Yeah, we can't use you.
You need everybody to be pulling the rope in the same direction. Everybody succeed, because when everybody succeeds, we get more claims. Everybody stays busier longer.
And a lot of people don't realize that we may have 20 claims each for you right now, but if everyone's doing a dang good job, we could have 50 claims each next week.
Exactly.
Because the carrier sees those things, and the carrier sees also, like I said, I bring people into meetings or into trainings or whatever it takes. And when they see people engaged and doing, by their claims handling best practices, they like to see that. It shows. Yeah. And I feel like we've got a really good culture of that here at CNC.
So this next question I got for you, I think I've got an answer in my mind, but you might say it when I ask it. So what are some things, or maybe what is one thing, I should say, that when new adjusters come in, they think, oh, this really matters. I need to do this. But come to find out, it's not as important as they think, and maybe they should focus more on this instead.
Oh, God. I guess we've already kind of touched on it, but like a policy, I really need to know this entire policy front and back.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You can literally pick and read through portions of it and know it, or knowing how to write specific letters.
Yeah.
You're going to learn that as you go. What do you have in mind? Because now I'm like, is this a question?
The reason I think about this is because I think you've said it before. Somebody has. New adjusters come in and they think, I've got to stand out, and that means I got to be fast. I got to do everything fast as possible. When in all reality, I mean, that's fine, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is the quality.
Yeah, quality. I'll speak to that too, because doing something and closing 20 claims a day is not the same as having a quality closure. And by quality closure, I mean quality claim in general from day one. From the time you get that claim, you're calling the insured and you're explaining our expectations of the claim.
Yeah, and how the process is going to go.
How it's going to work. I feel like that's something that I see more often than not these days is people call the insured and they're like, hey, I'm your desk adjuster. You have this claim, ask a couple questions about the claim, but you don't explain what's going to happen next. And as a desk adjuster, that's where you're going to get in trouble, because the insured's going to call you tomorrow and 3 times the next day. And they're like, well, what about this? What about if this happens? When am I going to get a check for ALE or this? If you explain everything on that first call, hey, I'm your desk adjuster. This is what's going to happen next. The field adjuster is going to come out. I'm going to take 7 to 10 days to review his documents once they're submitted. Maybe not that long, but anyway.
Sure.
Once they're submitted, I'm going to reach out to you and go over the coverage determination letter or coverage determination with you. Explain that process. Explain if you have any needs. I see that this hurricane ripped the roof off of your house. Right. Is your home livable?
Yeah.
Are you able to stay there? Explain everything. Read that first notice of loss. And that first call with the insured, you should be breaking down everything. So are you able to live in the home? No. Okay. Keep your receipts because ALE is an incurred expense. Keep all of that, anything that comes in. If, the insured's like, well, what do I do? I had a pipe leak and I don't know how to turn the water off. Call a plumber immediately. Explain everything that needs to be done, what the timeline, what the processes are, how long it's going to take for them to get the check once you're ready to issue that. If you explain everything up front from the get-go, you're not going to have 400 calls coming in a day.
Yep.
You're not going to be stressing like, oh my God, these calls are nonstop. I don't know what to do, because you're starting off the claim in the right way. That I feel like in and of itself helps new adjusters immensely, because I've had adjusters come to me and they're like, Kelsey, my phone's rang 6,200 times today. And I'm like, well, did you explain to your insureds what's going to happen next? And they're like, well, I didn't really get a chance because I haven't talked to him yet, or whatever the case is. And there are just things that you learn along the way. And that's one of them, that you've really got to start it off right, and it'll end right. And again, quality files. Don't close that claim without talking to the insured. Don't do that. Don't write 20 letters in a day and then we go back and look and we're like, well, crap, you missed this.
Because then what did you gain?
What did you gain from that?
Other
because
than a
now
number,
you're going to have to go back and you're going to have 42 supplements on those claims.
Yeah, your chance for reopens really shrinks.
It really
when
does.
you take the time and you make sure it's a quality closure, as you said, as opposed to saying, all right, I'm going to close 8 claims a day and have the biggest numbers of anybody. That's all fine and good.
Eventually you can get there and have quality closures and do that. But for our new adjusters, 10 out of 10 don't recommend. If it takes you a little bit longer, that's fine too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm a big proponent of that, and we always talk about it in training. Speed is great, but if you don't do it right,
it doesn't
you're
matter.
going to have to do it a second time anyway, and then speed goes out the window.
Yeah, speed's out because you're doing it twice.
Yeah. All right, so final thoughts here.
Okay.
As a new adjuster, when they come in, what is something that you give them as a first piece of advice? And it can even be a couple. New adjuster, you interview them, you hire them, they get ready to start, they're getting ready to work a desk for a carrier. What's one of those first things that you tell them, like, hey, you'll be really good and you will succeed if you do X?
I feel like we've kind of touched on a lot of those already, but I feel like the number one piece of advice that I give adjusters, and the one piece of advice that was taught to me, is to be empathetic to the policyholders.
Yep.
I mean, that's number one always in my book. And that's why we're here. We're here to help people. We're not here to make a buck.
Yeah, we're in the people business.
Like, we are in the literal people business, because not only are these people filing a claim, they're not trying to come out and get money. They're having something detrimental happen to them. They are going through probably one of the hardest times in their lives. I mean, I've dealt with people who said, Kelsey, I just had a baby a week ago and now I have water throughout my entire house. I don't know what to do. Empathy is number one. You care, you give a crap about these people, because that's what really, really matters. And the people will see that. The insureds notice when you care and you give them advice that is helpful with their insurance claim. It's helpful with knowing, like I said, figuring out and explaining to them what needs to be done up front, but doing it in a way that is polite and is kind. And a lot of people tell me that I throw some Southern charm in there, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it is truly, I've had insureds send flowers after claims, and they're like, Kelsey, thank you so much for helping me through this. And I've had denied claims where I'm like, we're not paying you a dime, but I've had them still steadily reach out to me and say, I cannot thank you enough for how you treated me during one of the hardest periods of my time, of my life, explained everything so that they understand. If you're denying a claim, you have to be able to know why you're denying it and how to explain that and discuss that with the policyholder, so that not only they understand, but they don't have any questions after the fact. I can remember a claim recently where someone had a claim, and I'm just calling back as a manager. The supervisors have talked to them, everyone's run through, and they're like, Kelsey, they're so frustrated. They just won't take no for an answer. They're filing a lawsuit, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, all right, let me call them. This happened probably 3 months ago. And I called the guy and I said, hey, this is why. and explained it from beginning to end. And I think it had to do with the hurricane, the date of loss, applying the hurricane deductible. The claim wasn't actually denied. It was just below their deductible because they had a very high hurricane deductible. Explained it to them in a way. You have to know the policy, learn the policy, listen to people around you, because this came from somebody else that I heard them talk about it. I heard a carrier talk about it, and explain it in a way that they understand, and be kind, and don't talk over anyone ever. Let them say their piece. A lot of times people just want to get out their frustrations.
Yeah, that's okay.
And that's fine. And they were like, well, crap, none of those other people explained it to me or really stopped to, they were just trying to cover up, you're mad, what can I do to help make this better?
Yeah.
It's not always about making things better. It's about explaining so they understand. And empathy is number one in this business to me. Caring about not only your insureds, but the carriers that you work for, being respectful, responsible, responsive to the carriers. That's another thing that's huge for me that I say on day one. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but this being responsive. If I reach out to you, it's for a reason. And I don't want to say just because I'm a manager and I'm reaching out to you. But if I do, or if your team lead or your supervisor or anybody reaches out and they're like, hey, I see this in this file, can you please update that? And you wait a week to do it, I don't see a point in you working, here.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to kind of say it bluntly, because we're on a timeline. A lot of these states have timelines that you cannot miss. If I'm like, hey, you need to issue this payment because we have one more day to do so, and you wait 2 days to do so, we're in trouble. And I'm not going to send out just crap to people and say, hey, do this because I want you to do it and make you busy and have all this stuff to do. No, it's for a reason. And if I'm sending direction or say, hey, if you're responsive and you're like, hey, absolutely, I'll get that done right now. And I'm not saying drop everything you're doing because I emailed you, not in the slightest, but responding to an email, and I won't even only say to me, but to your insureds, to a carrier if they reach out to you, to your supervisor, whatever, respond to the email. Don't just ignore it. Yeah. Because they're going to pile up. You wouldn't imagine the emails I've seen of some people that have 5,000 unread emails. And I'm like, how do you sleep at night?
Yeah. Not me.
Could never.
Not me. Well, Kelsey, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
You gave a lot of great insight. Last week was kind of more field-oriented. Today was a lot more desk-oriented from the eyes of a claims manager. Can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I'll see you after this is over when we go back to work.
True that.
All right, sounds good. All right, everyone, we just wrapped up a fantastic episode with our very own Kelsey Arrington. View of the insurance adjusting world from the eyes of a claims manager. Again, very thankful that you joined us today. If you missed any of our previous episodes or previous seasons, go back, give them a watch or a listen. Wherever you get your podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button, CNC, Catastrophe and National Claims. Leave a like, drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube to maybe get featured in a future episode. And also be on the lookout for some social media posts coming from CNC and comment on those to see if you can get featured on a future episode as well. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.